He believed his power would shield him, that no one would dare to challenge him. But when Pam Bondi exposed his secret deals, his reign came crashing down. As Florida's former attorney general, Bondi had taken on corrupt politicians, drug cartels, and high-profile criminals who thought they were untouchable. Yet this case was different. Sitting at her desk with a thick file of financial records, deposition transcripts, and sworn affidavits spread before her, Bondi discovered a dark pattern. A judge, Judge Robert Kinsey, whose spotless record on paper concealed decades of hidden corruption. Kinsey, who had presided over life-changing cases for over 20 years, was now under scrutiny. Across from Bondi, her client Kyle Donahue, a former courthouse clerk, sat rigidly. He had uncovered evidence that most would have hidden away, even at the cost of his career or personal safety. "You're telling me Kinsey fixed cases for years, and no one noticed?" Bondi asked, her voice steady and sharp. Kyle replied, "Not exactly. People looked the other way. I saw case files vanish, verdicts that defied logic, and rulings that consistently favored the same few." He then recounted specifics. The case of Daniel Reyes, a developer who should have been imprisoned for fraud, yet was set free after Kinsey dismissed key evidence under dubious pretenses. The file revealed dozens of similar cases. A corporate executive's insider trading charges dropped after a sudden loss of evidence. A businessman with offshore ties spared on a technicality, and even a money launderer's conviction overturned with flimsy reasoning. All of it pointed to a pattern that tied back to the judge and the money fueling his influence. When Bondi pressed for details about Kinsey's finances, Kyle admitted his official records were clean, no flashy deposits or lifestyle changes. However, he uncovered offshore accounts, real estate holdings under multiple aliases, and a network of dummy corporations that shielded his true income. "I think he's being protected," Kyle whispered, his voice low. Bondi's eyes narrowed. She had fought corruption before, but this was monumental, a system built to protect the guilty and silence those brave enough to expose it. Determined, Bondi parked her car a block from the Hillsborough County Courthouse. As the Florida heat pressed against her windows, her focus remained fixed on the battle ahead. Inside, Judge Kinsey continued his routine, his black robe and calm demeanor belying the rot beneath. Her phone buzzed. Detective Mark Henshaw's cautious voice came through. "Tell me, did you find something?" he asked. Bondi replied, "You're not going to like this. Kinsey has hidden assets tied to shell companies in the Cayman Islands, all linked to cases he ruled on, benefiting high-profile defendants." Henshaw confirmed, "We've traced 3 separate shell companies. There's more. One of our sources says Kinsey knows he's being watched. He started moving money, preparing to run." Bondi felt a grim satisfaction. The pressure was on, and now Kinsey was scrambling. She grabbed her case file and strode confidently through the courthouse lobby, a space that reeked of history and hard-fought decisions, and headed toward Kinsey's courtroom. Outside the courtroom, Kyle waited nervously. "You're really doing this?" he asked. Bondi simply nodded. Inside, Kinsey presided over a routine contract dispute. But Bondi's mind was elsewhere. She had observed every calculated gesture, every lean forward as Kinsey delivered his ruling. As soon as the trial adjourned for recess, she made her move. "Your Honor," she called, striding toward the bench. Kinsey's eyes flickered with irritation. "Miss Bondi, you're not a party to this case," he snapped. Ignoring him, Bondi continued, "I believe we have some unfinished business." The courtroom emptied slowly as attorneys and clerks gathered their belongings, but Bondi stood her ground. Kinsey reluctantly stepped down from the bench, his voice low and dangerous. "If you're here on that whistleblower claim, don't waste your breath. You have nothing." Bondi smiled coolly. "We'll see about that." She handed him a manila folder brimming with financial records, offshore accounts, and corporate ties. For a moment, Kinsey's expression betrayed a crack in his mask before he dismissed it. "This means nothing. Not yet," he muttered, then added, "but it will." As Bondi turned to leave, Kinsey called out, "You're making a mistake, Pam." She paused, meeting his gaze with unwavering determination. "No, Robert, you made the mistake. And now the world will know the truth. Stepping out into the humid Florida afternoon, Bondi immediately called Detective Henshaw. "I need you to meet me now," she ordered. 30 minutes later, in a dimly lit diner on the outskirts of town, Henshaw laid a stack of papers on the table. "This is everything we've pulled in the last 24 hours. Kinsey's shell companies linked to powerful people, developers, CEOs, even politicians. Some of the biggest cases he ruled on were just verdicts for sale. He's not working alone." Bondi clenched her jaw. A corrupt judge is one thing, but a network protecting him is another. There was urgency in Henshaw's voice. "He's moving money," he explained. "Some offshore accounts were emptied in the last week. If he's planning to run, we don't have much time." Bondi pushed the files aside. "We force his hand," she declared, then called her contact, Kyle Donahue. His voice trembled on the line as he revealed, "It's not just Kinsey. He's part of something much bigger. There's one more piece. Natalie Briggs, a former court clerk from Kinsey's chambers who left abruptly a few months ago. She might have the proof we need." After some coaxing, Kyle provided Natalie's address, a modest house on the outskirts of Tampa. At the overgrown property with its flickering porch light, Bondi knocked repeatedly. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing a tired, wary face. "Natalie Briggs?" Bondi introduced herself softly. "I need to talk to you." Natalie hesitated, then muttered, "Come in, but if anyone asks, say you were never here." Inside, in a dim room with drawn blinds and half-packed boxes, Natalie's nervous eyes darted around. "Sit," she instructed, gesturing to a worn-out couch. Bondi, keeping her tone steady, pressed, "You worked for Judge Kinsey for years. Tell me what you know." Natalie's voice trembled as she recounted, "I kept unofficial books, the ones that never made it to the courthouse records. I saw money coming in, where it went, who benefited. I told Kinsey I was done, but he warned me, people who quit on him don't last long." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Then my house was broken into, tires slashed, and my cat disappeared." A silent message. Slowly, Natalie retrieved a small flash drive from a desk drawer. "This is what you need. But listen, if you take this, you must finish what I started. Make sure this man never wears a robe again." Bondi met her gaze. "I promise," she said, accepting the drive. Later, back in her office, Bondi examined the flash drive's contents, transaction logs, offshore account details, case notes, even transcripts that laid bare every corrupt decision by Judge Kinsey. There was Daniel Reyes, the developer who walked free on fraud charges, and Lewis Carver, the hedge fund manager whose insider trading case mysteriously collapsed. Every case Kinsey had touched, every payoff and rigged ruling was documented. There was no way he had acted alone. With newfound resolve, Bondi dialed Detective Henshaw. "I have what we need. Meet me at the courthouse first thing tomorrow." The next morning, Bondi walked into the Hillsborough County Courthouse with measured steps, knowing Kinsey would be watching. In courtroom 3B, during a corporate fraud trial, Judge Kinsey sat at the bench, his usual calm, authoritative presence unshaken, or so it seemed. Suddenly, Bondi stood up. "Your Honor," she announced, causing Kinsey's head to snap up. "Miss Bondi, you are not a party to these proceedings. Please sit down," he ordered. But Bondi continued, pulling a thick file from her bag. "Judge Kinsey, you have betrayed the trust of this court, the people of Florida, and the very foundation of justice." A murmur ran through the courtroom as Kinsey's grip tightened on his gavel. Then, as if on cue, the doors at the back swung open. Detective Henshaw and 2 federal agents entered. Bondi stepped forward and placed the flash drive on the clerk's desk. This drive contains records of offshore accounts, illegal transactions, and tampered cases spanning a decade, every ruling bought and paid for. Kinsey's face turned pale as Henshaw announced, "We have a warrant for your arrest, Judge Kinsey." Gasps filled the room as Kinsey's fists clenched. "You think this will hold up?" He spat in a low, controlled voice. Bondi met his gaze coolly. "The system has already turned against you." As U.S. Marshals fastened handcuffs around his wrists, the courtroom erupted in shocked whispers. For a fleeting moment, Kinsey's eyes revealed not only anger, but also fear, a warning that this was not the end. Stepping out into the blistering Florida sun, Bondi was swarmed by news vans and reporters clamoring for statements. Detective Henshaw fell into step beside her. "That was something," he said, exhaling. Bondi replied, "It's not over." Henshaw nodded. "Kinsey is just the tip of this mess. The money trail, the connections, it goes way beyond him." Bondi paused, recalling Natalie Briggs, Kyle Donahue, and the countless victims whose lives had been upended by Kinsey's corruption. "We can't stop here," she said firmly. "We have to dismantle this system." Henshaw studied her for a moment. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" She met his gaze. "I wouldn't be here if I weren't," she answered. 3 days later, in an interrogation room at the Tampa Federal Detention Center, Kinsey, now stripped of his power and his suit replaced by a plain uniform, sat quietly as Detective Henshaw detailed his compromised transactions and backroom deals. Bondi watched from behind a glass partition, her eyes steely with resolve. Kinsey, for the first time, showed a glimmer of vulnerability, a silent acknowledgement that his empire was crumbling. As she left the detention center that day, Bondi reflected on the battle ahead. Corruption often hides in plain sight, in the stroke of a gavel, the draft of a verdict. But justice, true justice, finds a way to prevail. "Speak up," she had always said. And today, her voice had done exactly that.